my sister said. Come by for a casual family brunch. We'll squeeze you in. When I got there, there was no seat for me. My mom pointed to a bar stool in the corner. That's fine for you, right? I nodded, ordered a latte, then handed my card to the server and said, I'd like to close out, but move the rest of the charges to table 7. 30 minutes later, my brother stood up and yelled, Who the hell put $1,300 on my bill? What they really deserved was to be cut off, publicly embarrassed, and tossed out of my life the way they tossed me aside for years. But I never went looking for revenge. I only ever wanted a normal seat at the damn table. That's what makes all of this so satisfying. It wasn't revenge when I walked into that restaurant. It was just a brunch invitation. A stupid, casual brunch Danielle threw out there like she was letting me into her VIP section for a couple hours. Her text had said, Come by for a casual family brunch. We'll squeeze you in. Squeeze me in? It wasn't lost on me that the rest of them were already permanent fixtures in every family event, while I was treated like a tag-along. I had already decided if things went the way they usually did, I wasn't going to let it slide again. I had no plan, just an instinct that told me to expect exactly what happened. I arrived 10 minutes early. Should have been early enough to grab a seat or at least help them settle in. But no, the entire family was already seated like they'd been there an hour. I counted 9 seats around a long table. Plates already on the table, drinks half finished. My parents, Danielle and her husband, Nate and his fiancée, Kevin and his new girlfriend. Even Uncle Mark had shown up out of nowhere. 9 people. No room for 10. I stood there for a second, thinking maybe someone would say something. A greeting. A wave. A joke about being late. Nothing. It was like walking into someone else's family dinner. Danielle didn't even look up. Nate glanced at me, then went back to whatever story he was telling. Finally, my mom gave me a smile like she just noticed the waiter brought out the wrong toast. She nodded toward the bar and said, That's fine for you, right? She meant the bar stool in the corner, near the wall, next to a tray of dirty glasses. I didn't answer. I just walked over and sat. From there, I had a full view of all of them. The way Danielle threw her head back laughing at something Kevin said. Nate pouring Prosecco like he was hosting a wedding. My dad telling some story with that smug look on his face. They looked like a family. I looked like a stranger they didn't know how to tell to leave. I ordered a latte. Sipped it slowly. They didn't ask if I wanted to join the table. No one shifted a chair. It was like this had been the plan all along. That's when something clicked. If they wanted to treat me like an outsider, I'd act like one. I watched them order more drinks. Then a few small plates. More entrees. Another bottle of Prosecco because Kevin's girlfriend wanted to try it. Nate made a show of it, holding it up like he was a sommelier. The bill was climbing fast. I caught the server's eye as she walked past me and asked for my check. She handed it to me. $5.75 for the latte. I handed her my card and said I'd like to close out, but could she please move the rest of the charges to table 7? She paused, blinked, looked over at the table. I just nodded. She didn't say a word. Just walked off with my card. I left the latte unfinished and walked straight out. Didn't look back. I was halfway home when I got the first text. It was from Kevin. Dude. Nate is freaking out. Someone put the entire tab on his card. Over $1,300. He stood up and yelled across the restaurant. Everyone's staring. I pulled into my driveway, went inside, made a sandwich, and turned on the TV. I didn't reply. Just waited. Because if you're going to squeeze someone in, you better be ready for the pressure. The next morning started with silence. Peaceful, almost surreal. I sat on the porch with a coffee, scrolling through texts I had no intention of answering. 4 missed calls from Mom. 2 from Nate. 1 from Danielle. Then the voicemails, the usual mix of fake concern and veiled threats. Mom's voice said, Call me back as soon as you get this, we need to talk about yesterday. Nate's was just, Fix this, man. Seriously. Don't be a jerk. Danielle's was the best. I don't know what you thought you were doing, but I covered the bill, so we're going to talk about that. Today. I deleted them all. Around 10 a.m., I heard the front gate click shut. Rachel was in the kitchen and looked out the window. Danielle's here. Of course. I didn't get up. Just waited until the doorbell rang. Rachel didn't move either. She knew I'd open it, and she knew how it would go. I opened the door, and there she was, holding an ice something from a place that prints your name in gold on the cup. No hello. No small talk. She walked in like she lived there. I covered that tab yesterday, she said, standing in the middle of the living room like she expected applause. Over $1,300. I didn't answer. She waited for a reaction that didn't come, then kept going. I didn't have to. But I did. Because I don't make scenes. I don't ruin family gatherings. I solve things. I leaned against the wall and just let her talk. I wanted to see how far she'd go. I don't know what your little stunt was supposed to prove, but congratulations, you got attention. Everyone's talking about it. You embarrassed Nate in front of the whole place. You embarrassed all of us. Still, I didn't say anything. Because I was starting to realize something. She wasn't mad about the bill. Not really. She was mad because I'd flipped the script. For once, I'd forced them to react. I'd been quiet, polite, always the one to let things go. And now they didn't know what to do with me. You could have said something, she added. Instead, you acted like a spoiled kid. It was selfish. That was the moment I finally looked at her. You think that was selfish? Sitting me on a bar stool in the corner like a stranger at my own family's table. What's that? She shook her head like I just didn't get it. We were full. We figured you'd be fine. You're used to being independent. Right, I said. Translation, we don't care where you sit as long as you don't disturb the photo. Danielle scoffed and crossed her arms. You've changed. You used to be chill. Now you're just bitter. Rachel had heard enough. She stepped out of the kitchen, drying her hands with a towel, and walked over. Calm, steady. No, Danielle. He's not bitter. He's tired. Tired of being treated like a benchwarmer at his own family's events. Tired of you showing up here only when you need something or want to deliver a lecture. Danielle's eyes narrowed. I'm not talking to you. This is between me and Rick. Rachel smiled, dropped the towel on the table. No. See, it stopped being between just you and Rick the moment you started depending on him. Rent-free, by the way, for the last 22 months. Free house, utilities covered, property tax? All Rick. Danielle flushed, went to respond, but Rachel was already moving. You think calling him selfish is going to work? After all the money he's saved your sorry setup? You have no job, your husband doesn't work, and you still act like you're owed something. Watch your mouth, Danielle snapped. Rachel didn't blink. She walked right up, grabbed Danielle by the hair, not hard, but with finality, and marched her straight back to the door. Pushed it open, shoved her out onto the porch, and slammed it shut before Danielle could even gasp. I stood there for a second. No words. No cheers. Just the silence that follows a line finally being drawn. Rachel turned to me. You've been too generous. Time to stop. She was right. That house Danielle lived in, the one I owned, paid for, maintained, had been a favor I'd offered during what was supposed to be a rough patch. Her husband lost his job. They had 2 kids. I felt bad. It was supposed to be 6 months. Then they were saving. Then her husband was freelancing. Then it just turned into this unspoken expectation that I'd keep footing the bill. No rent. No gratitude. Just entitlement. By 2 p.m., I drafted the email to the landlord service. I told them the lease support from me was ending. They had 2 weeks' notice to vacate. I asked for official paperwork to be sent immediately. No more safety net. Let's see how golden she feels when the floor gives out. The email went out before dinner. I wrote it like a contract, clean and cold. Sent it to the property manager who handled the house Danielle and her family had been living in. I told them my financial support was ending effective immediately, and the tenants had 2 weeks to vacate. No extensions. No exceptions. I asked for confirmation once the formal notice was delivered. Then I sat back and waited. By the time I closed my laptop, my phone was already vibrating. Danielle called twice, then Nate, then my mom. I let every call go to voicemail. I knew exactly how this would go, crying, guilt-tripping, twisting it all back on me. Then the text started. Danielle, are you serious right now? You're throwing us out? You think this is okay? Mom, Rick. You need to call me. This is too far. There are kids involved. You can't do this to your sister. Danielle again. Wow. You're really proud of yourself? You look pathetic. You always were jealous of me. That one actually made me smile. Jealous? Of what? A woman who hasn't worked in 6 years, married to a guy who can't hold a job and hides behind being a consultant, while playing video games all day. That night, Rachel and I made dinner and didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. It was the first time in a long while I felt something like peace. The next morning, I woke up to a wall of missed calls. Danielle had tried me 6 times overnight. My mom twice. Nate once. My dad, who hadn't said a word in months, texted, "We don't always agree with your sister, but this is still your family. Don't let this become permanent." I didn't respond. I let it all sit. By noon, Danielle showed up at our house. She didn't come to the door, just stood on the sidewalk with her kids in the car, texting me over and over. "We need to talk. I didn't sleep. Please, let's fix this. Don't punish the kids." Rachel looked out the window, then looked at me. "Don't you dare open that door." I didn't. They stood there for 15 minutes. The text slowed. Then stopped. Then they drove away. Over the next week, the desperation came in waves. Danielle sent an emotional email, trying to sound reasonable. Full of, "I know I've made mistakes. And we just need time." My mom texted me pictures of the kids at the park with the message, "Do this for them." Nate called and left a voicemail pretending to joke, saying, "Bro, this is getting wild. Just talk to her, yeah? You made your point." None of them got it. I wasn't teaching a lesson. I wasn't trying to get even. I was done being their backup plan. On day 6, Danielle finally called and didn't hang up. I answered. She didn't yell this time. She cried. She told me they didn't have anywhere to go. That she'd been counting on me. That she never imagined I'd do this. I let her talk. When she finally paused, I said, "You've had 2 years. That's 84 weeks longer than we agreed on. This isn't a punishment. This is reality. You're just mad I finally stopped pretending it's not." She was quiet. Then the line went dead. I thought that would be the end of it. But the next morning, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Her husband's mother. They were coming next. I let the call ring out the first time. I didn't recognize the number, and I already knew the voice on the other end wouldn't be asking how my weekend was. When it rang again 5 minutes later, Rachel glanced at me across the room. "Answer it. Let's see how deep this entitlement goes." So I did. "Rick," the voice said, polite but with that slight edge of practiced superiority. "This is Diane, Danielle's mother-in-law." I didn't say anything. "I understand there's been some tension. We just want to talk. This is a family issue, and it's gotten a bit dramatic, don't you think?" I asked her what exactly she thought was dramatic. She laughed lightly. "Well, evicting a woman and her 2 children, your own family, with barely a warning? That's not something I thought I'd see from someone so stable." Ah, there it was. The insult wrapped in a compliment. She continued, "They'll be staying with us, of course. Temporarily. But I wanted to know if we can revisit the decision. Maybe you help out for another month or 2, and in return, we help them transition. Keep things civil." Civil. That word hit a nerve. These were people who had never once invited us to a holiday dinner, never called on birthdays, never acknowledged a single favor I'd done. And now, they wanted civility. I told her it was done. There was nothing to revisit. No more favors. Not one more dime. She sighed and said she hoped I'd come to my senses. Then hung up. By the next day, I was getting texts from random numbers. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. One from a family friend who said, "You should be ashamed, man. Kids are involved." Apparently, Danielle had been busy crafting a story. According to her, I'd blindsided them, thrown them into homelessness, and left her children with nowhere to sleep. Left out the part where she hadn't paid rent in nearly 2 years. Left out the part where her husband had turned down 3 jobs in the last 6 months because they were beneath him. Rachel saw the messages, grabbed my phone, and blocked each one without a word. On the 10th day, something unexpected happened. I came home from work and saw a minivan parked outside our house. Danielle's? At first, I thought she was trying another doorstep stunt, but she wasn't alone. Her husband was inside, standing next to a folded-up crib and a stack of boxes. Danielle was crying on the porch, loudly. Not the kind of cry that asks for sympathy, but the kind that's meant to be heard. Performed. They weren't there to talk. They were trying to make a scene. Rachel opened the door. "What is this?" Danielle turned around. "You got what you wanted. You ruined everything." Her husband stayed quiet, arms crossed, clearly uncomfortable but not enough to stop it. The kids were in the car, windows cracked, looking confused. I said nothing. Danielle pointed at the boxes. "This is what happens when family turns on you. We have nowhere. We're leaving town." I nodded. "Good." She stared like she didn't understand the word. "You're not even sorry?" she asked. "I was," I said. "For years. Not anymore." Then Rachel added, "You want a villain? Fine. Just don't come back when your next plan fails." Danielle stood there for a few more seconds, waiting for someone to cave. No one did. She got back in the van, slammed the door, and drove off. I thought that was the last of it. But 2 days later, we got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A formal envelope. Certified mail. Inside was a typed statement from her husband's parents. They were suing me for emotional damages caused by forced displacement of family. That's when I realized. These people were never just entitled. They were delusional. The letter sat on our kitchen counter for 3 hours before I opened it. Rachel saw it first. Certified envelope. Legal stationery. I recognized the name right away, Diane, Danielle's mother-in-law. Apparently, she and her husband had taken things to the next level. I unfolded the letter slowly, half expecting it to be some ridiculous plea for money dressed up as a legal threat. It was worse. They were threatening to sue for emotional distress, disruption of family stability, and reckless negligence resulting in displacement. It named me specifically, included a list of damages, and even a demand for financial compensation for transitional housing. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. Rachel didn't. "This is harassment," she said. "You need to end this. Not with words. With actions." She was right. So I made a few calls. By the end of the day, I had retained a lawyer, not because I thought their little stunt would hold up in court, but because I wanted them to know I wasn't going to play this like a family drama anymore. If they wanted to turn it into a case, I'd meet them in court with paperwork, not apologies. My attorney sent a cease and desist to the in-laws within 24 hours, warning them against further attempts at extortion or defamation. The tone was sharp, professional, and unshakable. By the time they received it, they had already called me 3 more times and left 2 voicemails, all conveniently saved and forwarded. Danielle, for once, went quiet. But Nate didn't. He showed up at my office. Just walked in, past the receptionist, stood at my door like he owned the place. I didn't even look up. "You really going to destroy your whole family over some brunch?" That's what he said. That was the hill he chose to die on. I didn't respond. Just motioned toward the door and said one word. "Out." He hesitated. Then left. No fight. No comeback. Just walked out with his head low, for once not the loudest guy in the room. That evening, I did something that felt overdue. I started cutting every joint matter with them out of my life. Danielle had been listed as an emergency contact on one of my insurance forms. Removed. I had been managing a shared investment fund Dad had set up years ago. I withdrew my portion, dissolved the account, and let them know it was no longer my concern. Shared streaming accounts? Gone. Family calendar on Google? Left. I removed myself from every family group chat, left every shared app, deleted every birthday reminder I had set for their kids. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. I wasn't going to pretend anymore. When you're treated like a stranger long enough, eventually you realize you don't need permission to walk away. That weekend, Rachel and I went away for 2 nights. Small cabin in the mountains. No service. No interruptions. On Sunday evening, when we pulled back into our driveway, I checked my phone for the first time in 48 hours. 1 message. From Danielle. Just 1 line, "We're gone. Don't worry, you win." No apology. No self-awareness. Just the same self-centered tone she'd always used. I deleted it. That was the last time I heard from her. 3 weeks of silence. That's all it took for the air to start clearing. No texts, no late-night voicemails dripping with fake regret, no sudden knocks at the door. It was like someone had finally unplugged the speaker that had been blaring chaos in the background of my life for years. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, there wasn't a single person trying to guilt me, manipulate me, or remind me that I owed them something simply because we shared blood. It wasn't just peace. It was weightlessness. Rachel noticed it before I did. She started singing again while making dinner. Painting at night. We made coffee slowly in the mornings, took walks without checking our phones, slept through the night without either of us waking up from anxiety dreams. The tension that had made a home in my spine for years? Gone. Then, early one Monday morning, I got a call from the property manager who'd helped issue the eviction notice. She said, "They're out. Quiet. On time. Nothing left behind but a few broken blinds." They had packed up and left without another word. No final tantrum. No last-ditch emotional manipulation. Not even a passive-aggressive note. Just vanished. I drove over that afternoon. The place looked almost untouched. A little dusty. A few picture hooks still in the wall. But no damage. No sabotage. Honestly, it was disappointing. I expected some kind of mess. Some statement. But that would have required effort, something they only ever gave when it benefited them. The next weekend, Rachel came with me and we walked through the house one last time. I remembered standing in that very living room when I gave Danielle the keys 2 years earlier. She had cried. Told me I was saving their lives. Called me the most generous person she'd ever known. It took her exactly 3 months to start treating that generosity like an obligation. We listed the house as is. No renovations, no cleanup crew. Just a straight sale. It was under contract in less than 10 days. I never even told Danielle. She probably still thought I was holding it for her. We used some of the money to take a proper break, a cabin in Maine, perched on a cliff over the ocean. No service. No inbox. No one asking for anything. Rachel slept until noon. I cooked. We didn't speak much about what had happened. There wasn't anything left to say. When we came back, I started going through old files, insurance papers, bank accounts, shared utilities, and removed every tie. Danielle had been listed as an emergency contact on 3 different documents. I replaced her with Rachel. I deleted the shared family calendar. Left the group chats. Disconnected from every digital reminder of the people who had never truly shown up for me. Then I did one final thing. I took the old family photo off the stairwell wall, the one from a Christmas 10 years ago where we all wore fake smiles and matching sweaters, and put it in a box in the attic. Not out of spite. Just because it didn't feel like it belonged anymore. December came. No Christmas card from Danielle. No invitation from Mom. No group text organizing the annual brunch I was always awkwardly invited to at the last second. Just quiet. Clean, uninterrupted quiet. And in that silence, I found something better than closure. I found space. Room to build a life where being family wasn't a free pass to take advantage of me. Room to stop bending just to be accepted. Room to be happy without waiting for their approval. I used to think walking away from family meant failure. Now, I know it was the smartest thing I ever did.